Hello, everybody. It's Ken Davenport here. It's a very special day. 1, I'm wearing headphones. 2, I got my second haircut in 6 months. And 3, we have 4-time Tony nominee Raul Esparza on the show tonight. Company, Speed the Plow, Cabaret, The Homecoming, and of course, your favorite assistant DA from Law & Order SVU. We're also raising money for the Actors Fund. Thanks for being here. Let's get to it. Hit it, Mary.
We're getting the band back together, getting the boys who rock again. We're getting the band back together, in the face of a place that remembers when some punks from the suburbs lit the sky with too much reverb. We're getting the band back together.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. It is Tuesday night. We brought you another big-time Broadway star to make up for the fact that there are no big-time Broadway shows right now. And there won't be for a little bit longer. But we're going to entertain you tonight. How's everybody doing? We got lots of folks on tonight. Raul has a lot of fans, all of us joining. And I saw Alan. Where's Alan? Hello, Alan. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, Justin. Good to see you. Welcome back. Thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. If you are new to the show, please check out some of our earlier shows. We are now up to, it's like a great golf score right now. It's like episode 70-something, I think we're up to. Mary's nodding in the background. And we're going to keep going. Hello, Drew. Drew's been with us since the beginning, right, Drew? You've been around for a while with us. Hope you're doing well. Before I forget, if you have questions for Raul, please throw them in the chat. And then if you're watching on Facebook, make sure you check your Facebook Messenger because if you are lucky enough, Mary will call on you and yank you into the show live, and you can ask your question live. Okay, so don't forget that. Also, we had a fantastic episode with another great actor, Patrick Page, last week. Check it out. He talked a lot about theater makers and how they deal with their mental health during times of stress, and we all know now is one of those times. So check out last week's episode, and again, all the replays that we have, about 70 of them. We have a big old lineup for September as well. So don't stay tuned to this channel. Look at it. There's Raul. There's Sonia Taya, who's the choreographer from Moulin Rouge. We got Matthew Lopez, author of The Inheritance. We got Will Swenson. And we have Leia Salonga, who we're going to reveal some very interesting tidbits about, which I gave you a tease last week. I'll tell you this. It has to do with video games. Leia and video games. That's right. Miss Saigon is a gamer. So you have to tune in for that episode. What's in the news today? People are still talking about the Tony Awards, but we've also, there was a big event today across the country to get Congress to pay attention to the arts and artists. And here's my thought today. So everyone knows that Broadway is has a massive economic impact to the city of New York, the state of New York, this country. Theater has a massive impact, and it rarely gets help. And we are jumping up and down to Congress to plead for some assistance now. They bailed out the cruise industry, right? Why can't we get a little love? So everyone, there are a lot of venues, 1,500 venues around the country today lit up their venues red to get Congress to pay attention to us. So that was called the Restart Act. So that happened all across the country today. A Stephen Schwartz documentary was announced called, yes, Defying Gravity. I can't wait to tune into that one. Look at that. Stephen was our very first real guest on this live stream. So go back and check that one. And that one proved very, very popular. So that's episode number 2. But I can't wait to see that documentary just announced today. All right, that's enough. Let's get to the guests. He is, I'm gonna fanboy all over him in a few moments, but I will just tell you this teaser that I wrote in my blog today. One of my top 3 musical theater moments features this man. I'm telling him this right now. He's backstage listening because I want him to think about which one it would be, and we'll have him guess. Okay? Please welcome to the show, Mr. Raul Esparza.
Wait, I was in a musical once? How you doing, Ken? You look great.
Thank you.
You're looking good.
It's the Corona do. It's the Corona.
Yeah.
Pandemic will do.
I cut everything off today.
Today?
Clean it all up. Yeah. I hadn't shaved in, Well, I haven't shaved my beard completely in a year. Not since I did Seared. I started growing it for Seared last year. But it was pretty Captain Ahab. Like the last month, I was just like, so now I'm kind of back to normal.
Yeah, I love it.
Anyway.
Let's deal with the elephant in the room right off the bat. You joke like I was in a musical once.
Yeah.
When will we see that again? My friend?
Your guess is as good as mine.
That's a very good point.
I mean, it's funny because actually, like, there were a couple of musical theater projects that I had sort of in the pipeline. One in development, and one we had done the revival. We had looked at chess as a potential revival, and we had done it at the Kennedy Center
Right.
with Michael Mayer directing, and it was spectacular. It was Ramin and Karen Alivo and Ruthie, and anyway, it was really, really cool. And so there was still a lot of talk about whether or not that could come together. And we had just reread another draft of the script, and you know, the ABBA guys were happy, and Sir Tim was happy, and we're like, let's do this thing. And then the world ended. Maybe.
If there are chess fans out there, they know that draft of the script was probably the 8,700 draft.
Yeah, this is Danny Strong's latest pass.
And what's it like? What changed? Anything different?
Well, for the people who saw it, some people who saw it at the Kennedy Center, which we did, they did that sort of encores concert type contract where we rehearsed it in 2 minutes and then put it up for 2 days. And they were like, "Hey, that was good." And you're like, "No, that's not the way to do a show." But it was really exciting. That draft, basically what Danny Strong has done, which is really fantastic, is he's just placed the whole show in the context of the 70s and 80s Cold War. And so it plays like not a period piece, but almost a museum piece. And Bryce was playing the Arbiter, and he used that character to sort of create a narration about the 70s and 80s to put everything in a context. And it was really thrilling. It was exciting. It was, it felt like it really rang and resonated with what was happening in America at the time, and all of the stuff about Russia and the United States and the Cold War. And the audience was kind of pinging on all of the sort of intelligent things that the script was doing. But who knows? We're in a time right now where things change so fast. Who knows if that's the way to do it? That's a score that, man, I'd love that score since I was 15 years old. It's just one of the great musical theater scores that doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in college, I went to Lincoln Center, that old library, the library trick where I lied on why are you here?
Oh, sure.
Oh, I'm writing a dissertation on musicals that have to do with
totally.
hours, whatever. And they were like,
I did that too. I wrote a dissertation on Amadeus.
I did dissertations on everything just to watch. So speaking of when you were 15 years old, tell everyone just how you got started in this business and how early you knew this is what I want to do, because it just
I don't think that I knew. Look, I've loved acting since I was a kid. I remember, I told this story 1,000 times, but when I was a little kid, I remember being like the Wizard of Oz when I was in elementary school, and playing a bunny rabbit in some forest scene that doesn't exist. And I was in 2nd grade, and it was, I just loved it. I was so obsessed with the Wizard of Oz, I drove my family out of their minds. I was staging versions of the Wizard of Oz all over my house. From the book, of course, because you couldn't see the movie at random. You could just, you could rent it. Well, come on, the 70s. So I just would read the book and keep acting it out. And then as I went through, in 5th grade, I became obsessed with Shakespeare, and I started sort of reading Shakespeare's plays out loud. Yeah, I was in 5th grade. I had a teacher who introduced me to Macbeth, and I was never the same again. 10 years old.
Yeah, that's a creepy teacher, though, Raul.
Actually, no, it was my fault. I wanted to write a short story about an actress who goes crazy, and I said, what would she read? What part would she play? And the teacher said she would play Lady Macbeth, and I was like, yes. So I went to the librarian and I said, hey, I bet you've never heard of this play. It's called Macbeth. And the librarian was like, yeah, well, I have. And she gave me a copy of Shakespeare's plays and also the Tales from Shakespeare, which I made my way through. And then eventually she gave me a copy of all of the plays of Shakespeare, which I still have. It was put together in 1911, and I still have that book. I went through that book with a fine-tooth comb. It's covered in ketchup because I used to act out the plays. So look, it's always been something that's been part of my life and that I've always loved, but I remember thinking that it was not necessarily a way to make a living. When I look back on it now, what I did was essentially back myself into doing this for a living. I kind of removed all my options. I thought I'd be a lawyer. I thought I'll study English and theater, and then I'll go to, Georgetown and get into international law. There'll be other ways to make a living. But slowly, I just eliminated every option that I had, so that I found myself studying theater and then working in the theater, knowing full well I had no intention of being an attorney, knowing full well that, like, emotionally, I had to do this thing. I did a lot of community theater, and I did a lot of stuff in high school at my Jesuit high school, plays in Spanish, a lot of plays in Spanish through junior high and high school. And professionally, my first job was at the Coconut Grove Playhouse in Miami.
Oh yeah.
An adaptation of Tartuffe set in Miami called Mixed Blessings. I was 18 years old, I think. And then went to NYU, studied, and then ended up going to Chicago to work at a theater called Remains Theater, which doesn't exist anymore. In a burst of glory, it is now a Bed Bath & Beyond. But it was an amazing group of actors to be around, and that was also Steppenwolf was just kind of blazing in all their glory, and I knew I wanted to work with them someday, and I got a chance to do that. So in my 20s, I spent most of my time in Chicago. I got my equity card at the Goodman Theater, and we did a production of Vi Sing at Remains, which is probably the reason they went under, because it was one of the worst things I've ever been in. But but I just fell in love with that city, and then that was a musical, and then I played Danny Zuko in a production of Grease at Drury and Oak Brook. But after that, the last musical I didn't sing in Chicago. It was called Cry the Beloved Country, directed by Frank Galati, starring Darius DeHaas and LaChanze, and so many extraordinary. I mean, it was extraordinary. Loy Arsenis designed it, and Susan Hilferty, and I think I was 21 years old. So after that, I just spent so many years in Chicago doing a lot of new writing and plays and things, and then finally came to New York on the heels of an Evita tour that I did, the 20th anniversary national, where I played Che, that Larry Fuller had put together with, Hal sort of weighing in and the whole original team. And I figured that if I had done well on that tour, which I sort of had around the country, it was maybe time to face New York. So I came here, and that was, 2000, I guess, 1999, 2000. So I've been here now 20 years, and my first professional gig in New York was also my first show on Broadway, and that was Rocky Horror. And I'm going to assume that that's the performance you're referring to.
Yes. It's I mean, I saw it.
It was me as Riff Raff.
It's definitely not. I mean, I enjoyed it very much. But
thanks, Ken.
I'm going to keep you guessing. And just what is amazing about your career, and of course the definition of a fantastic actor, is your ability to, like, oh, Tartuffe, oh, Danny Zuko, oh, Riff Raff, oh, The Homecoming, which I remember seeing you in, and just by jobbing on the floor, because that may have been the first time I saw you do something like that. And of course, Speed the Plow, which I was lucky enough to be a producer on. Do you approach Riff Raff the same way that you approach a Pinter play? Or, I mean, it's like, how do you
you know what? I'm laughing
because process.
That sounds insane, but yes. I mean, actually, The Homecoming is a great example, because we did not do any table work on that show. We did not sit around talking about it. Pinter is a playwright that you can negotiate into a corner and then theorize into oblivion. And Harold was not present for rehearsals, but he was on Skype constantly and giving us notes throughout the time. He died once we opened, actually. He passed away, I think, that year, right after we had opened. And his notes were always things like, you know what, there's a couple of good jokes in there, make sure they land. And I think that that's kind of fantastic, because so many of these truly great playwrights, and this, it's the same with like David's writing on Speed the Plow. Like they are such extraordinary writers, but the goal really is tell a clear story, make sure the laughs land, entertain the audience. Because if you're not entertaining first, you're not doing anything. You can have all the theories you want, it just doesn't matter. If the play's not exciting, no one's going to show up for it. So yeah, I used to be pretty obsessive about how I would prepare, but The Homecoming is a show that we did not do a lot of preparation for. We just figured it out on our feet. And that was an exciting way to work. I learned that mostly from my time with John Doyle on Company. Like, he's such an extraordinary director that with John, you walk in the room blank and just see where the day takes you. And that is, it's like, it's acting without a net, man. And it's the most exciting thing, and it makes you better, because if you fall on your face, you're still going to learn something. You're going to end up creating something really thrilling without making any plans. On Riff Raff, I am sure that I must have tried to make it into some sort of dramaturgical thing and work myself into a frenzy to make my entrances. But eventually you let it go because it's just Rocky Horror.
If I'm going to ask you one of my James Lipton questions, if the Smithsonian Institute called and they said they could memorialize one of your performances, take one of them and put them in the Institute, which one would you want them to save and preserve forever?
That's a good question. And it should be one of Bobby, I guess. Yeah, Bobby. It's any of the ones I've done for Steve, but I would say Bobby. Personally, my favorite thing I've ever done is Sunday in the Park with George at the Kennedy Center, because it's just a transcendent bit of theater. It's just one of the most gorgeous things I've ever inhabited. It is like being inside a dream, awake. And working with Steve for the Sondheim celebration was magnificent. Christine Baranski always said we were going to tell our grandkids about it. That it was a kind of summer of such magic that we would never forget it, and it's true. And getting to be there in the room with him and with those astonishing stars and listening to that music every week and working on those shows. Like, I knew I was good enough to get hired, but I didn't know I was good enough to do it. And you get better in the room. My other favorite part I've ever played is Septimus in Arcadia. And they're two similar things. They're very similar roles, George and Septimus. They kind of blur space and time and punch the veil constantly of what it is to be alive, and you feel utterly grateful doing these plays. You feel like, I am so blessed to be an actor and to kind of tap into something so much bigger than myself. But I'd say Bobby because I think it is the purest expression of something new inside Steve's work. I don't think I brought anything new to George. I think I tried to honor it, but maybe now I'd be a better George. But something happened with Bobby. That part played me. Something greater than me happened. And I don't know why.
you were extraordinary, but that wasn't the moment for me either. That wasn't it. No, it wasn't Bobby. One more guess before I review. Anyone in the chat have an idea of what it's literally one of my top 3 favorite moments in all of musical theater I've ever witnessed.
Musical theater.
Ever.
Holy shit. Something I did.
Yeah, something you did. And you weren't, well, I won't even say much more, but I'll give you
Don't tell me
more. It's such a small moment, which is why.
Jonas's soliloquy in Leap of Faith. I have honestly
definitely not. It was Tick, Tick, Boom.
Oh, wow. Of course.
And it was Come to Your Senses. It was that moment. I mean, this is what, again, I'm just going to fanboy all over you. This is what I believe great actors do. And I don't know if it was on the page or where it came from, but it was one of those moments where Amy Spanger is singing this big tune and Jonathan is there watching, and a little bit, all of a sudden, he started mouthing the lyrics to the song. Yeah. And just that moment just crushed me, because I so saw all that this man wanted was to have his song sung in front of people on a stage, and you instantly got that to me in one moment.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, that's one of my favorite moments I've ever played in. The thing that happened in rehearsals, the first time I heard Come to Your Senses, because it was originally written for Maren Maisie. She sang that song in the first workshop of Superbia. And I don't remember how it came about. I think it might have been Steve Arenas who had the idea that to put the song into the show for Amy, because we had Amy Spanger and she was so magnificent. And the whole of the making of Tick, Tick, Boom was figuring out ways to highlight everybody and tell the story that John Larson had told originally. And so I thought the song was outrageous. I thought the song was just one of the most beautiful things I'd ever heard. And the first time Amy sang it in the context of a read-through that we did at the end of the first week, because what we did was we learned all of the music for the show first, and then we sang and read the show for the first time that Friday at the end of the week in the Jane Street Theater. And in the context of that performance / reading where we sang the songs and heard them and the script, I was overwhelmed thinking about what it must have been like for him to hear that song sung for the first time. It struck me that it must be the most extraordinary thing to be a composer and see somebody do your work, and how overwhelming that must be and how moving. And then it was extra overwhelming to think that he never got to know how gigantic an influence he was going to have. And then that moved me so much. And it became this kind of push button moment where she begins as the character in the show, and then she turns into or rather in the workshop on stage, and then she slowly turns into his girlfriend on stage while she's singing. And there's this double thing going on at once. And it was like I'd never had to work at it. Every night I was awed. Every night. And sometimes I'd just sit there and just sobbing. And it struck me in a kind of moment of empathy of what that must have been like for John Larson. And also just for us to know that, man, we lost something huge when that composer went away. Something really huge.
It was
incredible. I think Larson, he was the voice. Did you know him at all, or did you?
No, not at all.
When we had Papa Larson and Nan, around all the time, and so you felt like his dad kept saying, here he is. This is like his journal, You're putting the stuff on stage. This isn't a play. Because we'd say, like, Papa, you don't have to be here. Because rehearsals were hard for him. And he was like, I do have to be here. It's my son's life. I have to listen. And you'd think, this guy in his 30s had managed to name the fears and the day-to-day life of a generation and put it in a musical in a way that no one had quite accomplished yet. I certainly felt like we were putting someone's journal on stage. I felt that when I watched Rent. I was like, hey, these are my friends. Wait a minute. Because I went to NYU. We lived in the East Village. I'm like, is it perfect? No, of course not. But no work of art is ever perfect, nor should it be. And I just think there's not a lot of playwrights who did that. Miller did it, and obviously Sondheim does it, and Lanford Wilson does it. That's why the certain names like just resonate with how they sort of speak for a generation for a moment. And Larson did.
How are you doing with all of this? Where were you when the virus hit the fan, as I like to say? What were you doing when it all came down in March?
I was on a little bit of a break. I had started filming an arc on Good Fight with Christine, and we had I had just finished the run of Seared a little bit earlier in the year and gone skiing, and that was fantastic. And then, like I say, working on a couple of musical theater potential like workshops and readings, and then discussing what was coming next. So it was a sort of, well, we'll see. Things are kind of moving towards the next place right now, and then everything just went into total suspension because I left Law and Order 2 years ago now, and that gives your life a real structure, having a series to film, 20 some episodes, 22, 24 episodes a season. And that falls into a very specific kind of timeline. But with theater stuff, it comes and goes so thoroughly that I had just done this very successful run and was feeling like, we'll see what happens next. Maybe I'll do some more TV. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll. That's one of the great luxuries of being able to do that when you've had a series behind you. And then the first thing that happened was it was Steve Sondheim's birthday, and I had this idea to make a concert to honor him online, and that went great. I mean, it went crazy at first, and then it went great. It was just this huge undertaking putting together that concert, and that was entirely because right as everything shut down, it was going to be Steve's 90th birthday, and they were going to open company, and it was just very much on my mind that something huge was being missed, and we needed to honor it. And also, even though I wasn't on Broadway right then and there, the day that it was announced that Broadway was closing, I wept. I just was like, that's home, man. No matter how far I've been for a few seasons, which feels like an eternity, in about 8 years, it's home. It's completely been my everything for most of the time I've been in New York. And that campus and that space and those artists and that community and the sense of camaraderie and the ways that all of the theaters are combined, and those blocks in New York City are the closest thing I have to family professionally. So it was like, whoa, how can that not be there? That really, really hit me hard, and I think it's part of what inspired this idea of why don't we do this thing for Steve? Well, I keep joking, if I had known how hard it was going to be to do it, we would never.
It was one of the first ones. I mean, like, it was really the first thing that was like, oh, we're going to do something huge and online and virtual. And everyone was like, what the heck? And you pulled it off, and it was, as someone just called it, magical.
It was
magical.
It was a real labor of love from the group of us that put it together. Bill Curran, Paul Montoric, and Mary Mitchell Campbell, and the experience from getting all of these artists involved, everybody saying yes because they love Steve so much and wanting to do these things, the vulnerability necessary to put yourself in these tapings and sing a song and put it online, and all of the things that we sort of know a little bit better now. At the time was very sort of spit and glue, and it has a great deal of charm to it. Certain performances in that thing just floor me. Elizabeth Stanley's performance of Miller's Son is a masterclass. And you think being able to do something so open and vulnerable and studied in front of your computer by yourself, it's unbelievable. And we just had over and over and over these artists willing to do this. It was incredibly moving. I felt like a fan the whole time we were doing it. Like, I mean, a kid. Like, it reminded me why I love theater. I felt like
That's what Callie just said. That concert reminded me why I love theater, which I just
oh my God, that's funny.
Because that you were successful in doing that, and it really was the first one. And I think you started a giant tidal wave of people saying, no, we can do this, and remind people how great the theater is, so that they're ready when we come back, which we will. It's just going to take a little time.
We will come back. It's just going to take some time. And I don't know about you, but it's I miss the audience, and it's exhausting putting these things together and appearing online and doing these performances online. It's nice to do, and you get the energy up and you put it together and you do it, and then you're out there and you know that you're working towards something because you love this thing so much. Yeah. And I sound like such a dork, but I don't care. I'm a proud theater nerd that way. I love this job that I get to do so thoroughly, and this world that I get to be part of so completely, that of course you're going to say yes, and you're going to show up and you're going to do these things, but it's just not even mildly comparable to the experience of creating stuff together as a cast and in front of an audience. It doesn't even scratch the surface.
And that's, I think people who watch it are feeling the same thing. They're watching, they're doing it, but they also feel it doesn't scratch the surface, which is good, because we don't actually want people to get in the habit or addicted to forget going to the Barrymore thing. I'm going to stay home and watch Sondheim's 90th birthday.
Yeah, no, I do. I do feel like the genie's a little bit out of the bottle, and I've said this a lot of times now online, where I feel like there might be a way for technology to start to influence the ways that we relate to theater. And I think there is something to say for the fact that so many people from around the world have been tuning into things that we're doing online. And people who can't make it to a Broadway show are showing up online and are excited to see things. And if we can figure out a model that makes financial sense that is maybe some sort of huge Broadway, like we do the National Theater live, then maybe we do Broadway live, and we could figure out some kind of model that doesn't kill us and doesn't murder all the copyright issues, and that doesn't allow people to keep performances forever and ever. Maybe there is some sort of a additional way that this technology that we're using now can begin to enhance accessibility for people who just cannot make it to New York. And it's never the same exactly, but clearly there is a gigantic audience for what we do, far beyond New York. Look, one of the biggest and most moving things about the Sondheim event for me was after the fact, I was shown a Twitter map of the hashtag Sondheim90, and you watch as it's being used around the world, the planet lights up with that hashtag. The whole planet lights up. And at one point, which is probably the ladies who lunch, New York City begins to glow like a heartbeat, and just gets brighter and brighter. And you're like, so I speaking of Tartuffe, I did a Tartuffe thing for Molière in the Park, where there were 5,000 people watching these performances of Tartuffe online. And then the next day, another 10,000 people watching from Uzbekistan. Okay. It tells you something.
You're huge.
Yeah, but I don't know, honestly, Ken, I don't know what it means, and I don't know what the financial model is, and I don't know how we solve that, because it's not about giving this away for free. But I do think that maybe technology is not our enemy in the way that we are used to thinking of it.
Look, you and I are perfect examples of that. We started this conversation by the two of us talking about how we lied on a piece of paper to try to get access to videoed content that was in the library. People will, just to see these things, and they deserve to be preserved and shown in ways that everyone benefits, including from a marketing perspective. So I'm trying to figure it out myself.
I don't know the answer, but I do think that there is something there, and I think that you're right. It's exactly that, because look, a little bit too is the mystery. Like, theater performances disappear; they're ephemeral. They just, and even if you film it, you're still not. It's just not. And again, unless it's a hologram in your living room, but even that, it's just not what it feels like when the person next to you is going, "Whoa, what was that?
Yeah,
you see that?" I remember I saw the final preview of The Lion King by myself. I was in from Chicago, probably auditioning for Evita or something, and did not know the woman next to me. I had bought a single ticket because friends told me, "You got to see this thing." I was like, "Sure, whatever." Sat upstairs, and then that opening started in that beautiful theater, and the elephant, and this woman that I did not know starts hitting me. She's like, "Are you seeing this?" Like, that only happens live.
My mom was sitting next to you. That's what she does. That's
Are you seeing this? Yeah, it's amazing.
Only in New York. I love it. We have someone who's Mary's brought in live to ask a question. Let's bring in Stacy and have Stacy ask you a question, if that's cool with you, live. It's modern technology.
Yes.
Stacy, come on in. Hi.
Hello. Hi, Raul.
Oh, Stacy. Ask away.
Great to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sure.
So my question is, what has been particularly eye-opening, new, or special about theater that you've witnessed these last few months that you hope is still retained when we return to a live experience?
I would say it relates to what we've just been talking about, just this sense that everybody is able to show up, that people are willing to kind of be incredibly present online, and that people are willing to show up and do things for each other and to offer their talents with a great deal of ease. There's such a sense of constant community and presence and pushing technology and pushing, like, hey, we haven't figured out how to sing exactly live, but let's try again, let's try again, let's try again. That constant need, I think, speaks to two things. One, innovation and excitement for what we do, and two, also just this must do thing, that it is very easy when you're doing 8 shows a week to forget how lucky we are to do this, and how it's very hard to do a show 8 times a week, and it becomes this job that you're like, ugh, it's extraordinary to see how much everybody is rallying and longing for it again. And I hope that doesn't get taken for granted. I don't know if
We'll
that
be
quite
back.
answers the question, but it's,
It does. It does.
yeah,
Well,
but it's related to that. It's related to this,
Yeah.
the ways that technology seems to be influencing it, and all of us are really showing up constantly.
Seared was the last thing I got to see on Broadway. So
Oh,
it's
really?
great to see you. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
We'll be back soon.
Yeah, Sensorama.
Thanks so much, Stacey, for
Thanks.
coming in
Thank you,
live.
Stacey.
Thank you,
We
Raul.
also have a question from Christian. This was going to be one of mine because you are one of those few actors that does go back and forth between film and stage, and very successfully. You know, every once in a while, one of our big Broadway stars will go do something and then run back. You really seems to be very comfortable in both camps. What's the difference in style or process? Do you have to shift a gear when you go from one to the other?
Yeah, I would say that the simplest and slightly technical answer is you never want to let the camera catch you acting. Where you're performing for an audience in the theater, there are things you can get away with that plays the last row. On camera, the last row is right here. And so you have to learn to trust the camera completely, that it's the most loving audience member you've ever had. It hangs on your every word. And I say this all the time, it reads your thoughts. So what that means is you end up thinking all the things that you would show on stage, and trust that what you're thinking will read. And it's a process that's being observed. It's a never a result, never a performance. You've never arrived, you're always getting there. The camera just follows you there. And you're also not making the performance on screen. The performance will be made later by the editing room, by the director, by what the producers have decided, by the way the script is structured. So what I had to learn to do, which is I think the biggest thing that happens for stage actors, is that we are so used to giving performances and being right and being finished by the time we're in front of an audience. I had to learn to let go of that and understand that mistakes are interesting and that the process is interesting. So I began to think of working on camera not as acting, but as rehearsing. And all the things that I do in a rehearsal room, I just do them in front of a camera. So everything that might be wrong, or not wrong, that's not the right word, but everything that might not be quite exactly right, often that's the most interesting stuff. And someone else will make that decision. It's about letting go, you know, which we're not used to, because we are so used to on stage. Rehearse, 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 and then you build to this opening night. Well, there is no opening night on camera, and you're never giving a performance. So finally, what you do on stage is you're in control of all of it, and at last you deliver this performance. But on camera, you're like, I almost don't want to know what I'm doing. I want to find it as the camera turns on. And the other great thing that camera acting does is it's so completely about listening and the other person, which is like acting 101, you know? We're told this all the time. It's just, if you don't do it, you'll look like you're crazy. You just listen, 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 listen. I promise whatever the other person is doing is so much better than anything you came up with on your own.
And where did that comment about like never let the cameras see you acting just says so, I've never heard it described that way. It's like, where did you learn that? Did you learn it by doing it?
You have to, yeah, absolutely. You have to learn it by doing it. I don't know how you get good at it unless you do it over and over and over again. And honestly, Mariska and I would have this shorthand constantly where we're like, hey, no acting. Like whatever the next take, no acting. And you were acting, stop that, you know? And it's a joke, but it is actually a good reminder that you don't have to do anything. This sounds so esoteric, but you just do it and 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 do it over and over and over again. And eventually something very true begins to happen. And I could essentially be describing right now what it's like to work, say, with John Doyle on a show. We'll do it and do it and do it, and then you eventually come through to something very new. Well, you have the luxury of doing that in front of a camera over and over again, and then something wonderful happens. It's letting go of results that is very hard for a theater actor, I think, or it is for me. And that's probably a very good lesson to learn. Like, hey, not up to me.
I can't find the comment now, but someone said that they know that you have a PlayStation 4. Are you a gamer? Is this true?
I'm not a gamer, but I do, like, yes, I do. I just bought The Last of Us Part 2, like a couple, when it first came out. And because the first one was so amazing that I was over the moon for this game, and just standing there staring at it when it ended. I was like, no, it can't be done. But it's just too heavy. I cannot play a pandemic zombie game right now. I just can't do it.
That's a good thing. I think that's healthy.
So I'm in Alien Land right now. I'm like looking at old Uncharted games. I'm blowing things up. I'm in Red Dead Redemption Land. I'm chasing the old games for a bit.
I love it. Well, there it is. There it is. Raul has a PS4. I would subscribe to his Twitch if he were a streamer. So listen, if you're looking to make a few extra bucks right now, start a Twitch account and start streaming. If you need some tips, Jordan Fisher, who is on, he'll give you some tips. In all seriousness, look, this is a very difficult time for a lot of folks. What are you doing to stay positive, and what tips would you tell everyone out there to stay positive, no matter what they do for a living, theater or otherwise? How are you keeping your head up?
Ken, it's been, I have been busier actually in the last few months sometimes than I've been when I was gainfully employed. That's not entirely true. I have less structure in my time, but I have been extraordinarily busy working on so many different projects. And I have found that the time right now has been rewarding because I have not felt the need to ask for permission to do things. I've just kind of gone, hey, what if we do this? What if we try this? What if we read this? What if we sing this? What if we get together and just, I have this idea for a short film. Let's try it. What if we make this film? So that has been inspiring and helpful. I have to admit that I am at a place right now as the summer ends where I'm feeling a little bleak about the fall. I'm concerned about the political situation in the country. I am scared about the anger and the division, just the massive sort of fury that is coursing through the nation. And I am not seeing a light at the end of the tunnel with the pandemic itself. So that, as I said, some of this stuff is feeling exhausting. And I guess I'm hopeful that getting up every day and continuing to do some of these things and staying busy is a way to see through the little bit of hopelessness. I'm being honest about that. It's a bit of a struggle. It's an up and down. No matter how busy I am, it's no substitute for, as I said earlier, being in a room together. Whether you're filming something or whether you're on stage in a rehearsal hall. I'm working on so many projects, but it's very lonely. You turn your computer off and then it's still just you in the room. We're going to hang up after this and they'll be like, that was nice to see Ken, except I didn't really see you.
I know. I keep saying it's like I'm on a stationary bike and I'm pedaling faster than I've ever pedaled anything, and I'm just not going anywhere. Just sweating, working harder than ever before, trying to move off the bike, and just like, I'm still not going anywhere.
Yeah. And I have found, like, at the end of the summer, I have had the luxury of being able to travel a bit, and not far from New York, but just getting out of the city has been nice. It's been nice to look at the beach and take some time away. Obviously, being anywhere now, we could do anything from wherever we are, so that's making you wonder what are you doing in New York? Like you're like, ugh. And that's not a feeling that I want to encourage too much in myself, because I think this is the capital of the world, and I think that it's gonna bounce back and explode as it usually does. It is the most thrilling city I know, and I miss it. I miss it. You walk down the streets and it feels broken. It feels wounded. And I see little glimmers of things starting to pop here and there again, and I'm hopeful for that. But it has been nice to be away. It's also nice to imagine what we can do next. It's just, this is my favorite time of year in New York, what's starting right now, the season. And to know that there isn't one is heartbreaking. And it, to me, like, there's nothing greater than start filming a new season of a series, say, and then have my evenings free to go watch films at the New York Film Festival. That's just one of my favorite things to do in the city, to walk around Lincoln Center after seeing these incredible films, or to go to the openings of all the new shows and see all these people that were part of some club.
Yeah.
Or what's playing, you know, what's at the Met, or what's, you know, or the sports teams are kicking in. Like, what, it's just, I miss that a lot. And this is the time of year when everything starts to get colder and you're like, wow, this is why we live in New York, man. It's this period of time from September through December. There's nowhere better.
Nowhere. Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's a little bit of both things. A lot of hope and a lot of work and a lot of energy towards getting up every day and reading a good book and finding good things to see and connecting to people I love. But if I'm honest, there's also a little bit of like, creeping in.
I hear you.
It's been 6 months of this, man.
I know, and it goes in waves. It just goes in waves. So, but we're getting there. I keep just saying, every day we're closer to it being over. That's what I just keep telling myself. Every day we have to be closer to it being over. So just get through it day by day. And I can't thank you enough for, one, being so honest about that comment and just sharing this time with us and knowing how busy you are. And
thank you for having me.
Oh,
really, it's great. It's so great to see you.
It's good to see you too. It's good to see you. I look forward to doing it in person. Damn it.
Absolutely, man.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Raul Esparza, everybody. Amazing actor, amazing guy. I can't thank you so much. And maybe we inspired him to join Twitch. I mean, maybe tomorrow he'll be on Twitch. Who knows? I'll let you know if that happens. And we'll all tune in. Thanks to him again for joining us. Thanks to all of you for being here and all the great comments for Stacy's live question. I finally remembered to bring in somebody live, or I should say Mary remembered, and then like hit me over the head enough times during this episode. You should see my chat. It's like, Ken, don't forget about Stacy. Don't forget, you idiot. Ken, live questions. I remembered. Thank God. Yeah, the people that work for me abuse me. That's what happens. Anyway, next week, who do we have? Mary, remind everyone who is here next week. Who do we got next week? We have Sonia Taya is coming next week, choreographer from Moulin Rouge, also from So You Think You Can Dance. Maybe we'll see if we can do a little virtual dance-off. I can show you how I used to break dance when I was like 15 years old and very, very bad. So we'll see what she's got to say about that. What else do we have going on? Don't forget about the Actors Fund. Lots of folks are still out of work and could use your help, so please do give if you can. And lastly, we always go out with something to make you smile. And you know, one of the blessings, and I try to do this every day, and this is another little tip that helps me get through it, is every day I try to come up with one blessing that's occurred during this thing. And you know, it's like I get to spend more time with my daughter. That's been a blessing. And one of them was that there have been some great organizations that have been not only founded, but also that have gotten a light shown upon them. And this is one of them. And it's called Broadway Hearts. And this is a group that's been providing music to kids in hospitals. And they, of course, like everyone else, were shut down. And they have been doing it virtually. So they have been doing these incredible music videos and then delivering to sick kids in hospitals all over virtually. And those poor kids that are alone right now, that could use just a little bit of joy and a little bit of music, this organization, Broadway Hearts, is bringing it to them. So I want to say a big shout out to them for doing that. And that is the Something to Make You Smile this week. It is Stand By Me through Broadway Hearts, by Broadway Hearts. Now, remember, we've got some fancy new technology, which means we're going to just roll on to this Stand By Me right now. I'm going to say goodbye, but stay tuned. Watch the video. We will see you next week, and I hope it makes you smile.
When the night